Welcome back to the Nesman Hockey Podcast. Hockey season is underway. James, we're back, baby.
Yes, we are, baby. Woo!
Did you watch any of the games last night?
Of course. I had the Tampa game that got the season kickstarted. Nikita Kucherov is the first goal scorer of 2023-24 for all those trivia folk out there.
And the empty net goal.
Yes, and the empty net goal. And then, of course, I watched the debut of Connor Bedard. And, man, what a player that kid is. Did you watch that game?
I watched the opening, but I heard some mixed reviews. So I'm interested in your positive perspective on the game, because I've heard kind of, not that he was bad, but he's so young, right? He's 18, so it's going to take a little bit. So it's a little bit of a mix. What did you see?
I'm surprised that you're saying that, because everything I've seen has been like glowing. Honestly, the one knock on his game, at least from last night, was just him in the faceoff dot. I think he was like 2 for 13 or something like that.
Oh, the opening draw was tough to watch.
Yeah, that's
against Crosby.
He won that faceoff with authority too. Like, he usually has a signature move like on the forehand, and he was like, no, I'm just winning it straight backhand. But no, I think that was really it. Like 2 for 13 on the draws, but everything else, like, he led every advanced analytic for amongst skaters on the Blackhawks last night. He had 5 shots on net. I think he had like 8 or 9 attempts. He had a nice assist for his first point. He's just a special talent, man. Like, he was play driving really well. He was not afraid to utilize every single person on the ice, not just, amongst the forwards, but he used the defensemen as well. I was really impressed by him, and I thought that I think he also led the entire forward group in time on ice. So good debut for him, and I expect, even like higher levels, like sooner rather than later. So I real quick before you go, I think my favorite moment though from the game was right before the draw. Some people didn't really like it, the opening draw. Some people didn't really like it. They were like, "Oh, that's so corny and cheesy," but I loved it. The ref turned to Sidney Crosby and said, I think it was Kelly Sutherland, "Welcome back for another season, Sidney," and then turned to Connor Bedard and said, "Welcome to the NHL, kid." And that was really cool. I thought that was a nice touch.
Yeah, I saw that. That also had, I thought, some mixed reviews. I don't mind. Have some fun. There's so little personality in the game. Do your thing. That's fine. And I understand the refs shouldn't be the point of attention at any point. I'm forgetting who's the ref that does all the wacky stuff. Wes McCauley,
yeah.
Fine. It's not for me. Not everything in the game is for me. It's whatever. What I thought was really interesting was Taylor Hall being in the lineup with yet another ridiculous first round pick.
Yeah.
He was, is with Bedard, with McDavid. I was looking back at the Devils roster too. Nico Hischier was on the team the last time, the last season with the Devils. So not a lack of talent that and then forget the countless first round picks, of which he's in that company that he was with the Oilers as well. And Nugent Hopkins and Yakupov and all, McDavid. There's probably more, but Jesper Bratt, I think maybe was on that team too for the Devil. Like, just really good talent that he's been on, if not first round picks.
Yeah.
I was like, just add it.
Bratt was a 6th
round pick.
Yeah.
Okay. So anyway, a really good player, but a lot of first round picks. So I thought that was really interesting that he's just become other guy now. And he was like the belle of the ball for a long time, and then just kind of bounced around. And now he's on Chicago. It is strange. There are some players, Ryan O'Reilly, saw him in a Nashville Predators jersey last night and said, yeah, Ryan O'Reilly's an Astro Predator. That jersey looks right. Taylor Hall's is never. There's no jersey that I can kind of think that works. Maybe Edmonton.
I think
They
it's
all look weird.
yeah. I think it's Edmonton for me that is the one that looks right, just because that's like that's where he started. That's how I was introduced to him. Um, you probably forget he was a Coyote.
I didn't forget. I was going to ask you if you forgot, so I'm glad we
Okay,
both
yeah.
remember. But a Buffalo Sabre, a Boston Bruin, now a Chicago member of the Chicago Blackhawks, Coyote. It just you wouldn't think that a player of that caliber, future former Islander Taylor Hall, it would bounce around like that. And I don't think he's just not produced. I think he's played really well. So wild to think that he's just continuing to kind of bounce around the league when he was somebody I think a lot of teams were trying to go after. A lot of fans wanted him on the island, and yeah, just wow. But yeah, the games were good. It felt good to kind of turn those games on and sit back. It's so dark so early now, and I feel like I'm in mid-season form. Oh, it's
Yeah.
7:30. Oh, we are almost ready for bed as we record this. I'm just like I'm cozying up.
Yeah, man.
I'm on the couch or whatever. So it feels good. It's just not quite as cold even up here yet. Before we get into regular season talk and the roster and some of the other news, the Devils and Islanders played a second time, and I don't believe that we were able to cover it on the show. And it did not look good for the Islanders. You and I were texting about it.
Right.
And if I remember correctly, it was a lot, if not almost all of the Islanders NHL regulars against a JV squad in New
Largely.
Jersey.
Yeah, largely.
And just give us a little reminder how that went.
Not great. 3-0 victory for the junior varsity Devils. And, you know, I wrote about this in regards to what it meant for New Jersey. That, the organization for them is very aligned in their goals and in their beliefs, right? The system that they play in New Jersey is also played in Utica as an extension, and then also Adirondack in the ECHL. So, you know, they play a fast game, high puck pressure. Not very often is their opposition going to have the puck, and that was the same exact style they played um, against a pretty much New York Islanders squad. So, look, they couldn't keep up with the pace. They were fast because all those younger guys trying to make the team, the fringe players, the bubble roster guys trying to make the team, they're fast. They play a fast system. They play that constant puck pressure, and it was almost like it was too much for the Islanders to handle. Obviously, we've talked about how they're older. We've talked about how they're slower, but they grind you down in different ways, and it's almost like um, Jack Hughes put it in a really good light last year when he said, like, we don't know any better. We just go out and play hockey. Like, everybody's down on us, but we're kids. Like, we don't know any better. We just do our thing. And that was almost what it was like for the Devils out there, and for the Islanders as a veteran group. You would have liked to have seen them, maybe push back a little bit, and maybe they don't care as much because it's just a preseason game. It's the last one. It's like, okay, let's just get to the regular season. Maybe they were coasting a little bit. Um, Ilya Sorokin certainly didn't look great. He looked fine. But again, it could have been one of those things where it's like, okay, preseason's been long enough. Let's get to the regular. I'm done with this. Um, you know, Meaningless game. I don't take too much stock in it. But you would have at least liked to have seen them get on the board.
Yeah, at a certain point, I understand both sides of it. You can be kind of aggravated that they didn't step up, but like we said last week, and what I've heard from writers and other podcasts, I can't remember the last preseason game that mattered that I even remember, right? Other than, and I even forgot the player who did it because I can never remember their name, but the player on Phoenix that was in Australia that did that 6 spinorama situation,
Logan Cooley.
Logan Cooley.
That was
So
really cool.
we're just going to ignore that. Maybe I'll cut it later. But yeah, I mean, I think there's a other than that, and we've all largely moved on. Bedard's first game, first NHL game of the season, blah, blah, blah. It's weird. So I'm not that worried about it. And I do want to get to some of those questions around this later, and we'll definitely get to that. And we're going to talk a lot about the lineup tonight, or for us tonight, whenever for you. So we're going to talk a lot about the lineup. So I have a little quiz. I know you love quizzes. There's a point to it that I'll get to at the end. So I want you to dig deep into your mind for a second. I want to go all the way back to June 2021. June 25th, to be specific, against the Lightning, a 1-0 loss. We're over it. It's fine. We've moved on. Can you tell me all the players in the lineup that night?
That's a good question.
Start with the low-hanging fruit.
Okay. First line was Barzell, Lee, and Eberle. Then you had the Killer Bees, Bo, Bailey.
Well, I don't think Lee was in the lineup. I think he was hurt. I think that was part.
Right.
I think that was
That's
on
the year he was
on
hurt.
the team,
Okay.
not in the lineup. So, to be fair, so
okay,
Barzell, Beauvillier.
So, but I have to replace Lee on that first line, correct?
You don't have to do it by line. I just want to know all the players in the lineup.
Okay.
I don't have the lineup. I just have the list.
That's how I'm probably going to remember it best. Like I don't.
Sure. It's not that hard, but I think it's it's an exercise that we're doing here. Okay, so first line, Barzell, Beauvillier.
This was 2021.
The second run.
It's crazy how much the team has changed.
You're just skipping ahead.
Okay,
sorry. Do the lineup.
All right, Pajot. That's his first year, right?
No, he was a lockout year, so he was the year before.
That's the second year. Sorokin, Varlamov, Pollock, Pellick, Mayfield. Did I say Dobson? Sebastian Aho, I think, was around. No? Is that Braden Coburn year?
Oh my God. No, but that's a player for Weird Islanders for Dan and Mike to go
Braden
look
Coburn.
Braden Coburn.
Nick Leddy. Oh God. So Boychuk, right? He's retired by then. We got skate to the face. The previous. Thomas Hickey.
Not in the lineup that night. Probably on somewhere on the team.
But he was on the team. Paul Mary.
Yep.
Oh goodness. Michael Dalcole.
No. Do you need hints?
Oh, well, okay. Martin Cizikas, Clutterbuck.
Ding, ding, ding.
Is that everyone?
No. You have almost all the defensemen. You're missing one gray hair.
Missing one. Wait, forward was.
I'm actually really surprised that you're struggling with this.
Don't make fun of me. Well, Ross Johnston was around.
Not in the lineup, but around.
Oh my God, this is first line Komarov.
This is first line Komarov.
Oh my God, this is crazy. Like, is this the year that like Austin Zarnik was in the mix?
No, but no, this isn't it. I mean, maybe early in the playoffs. So I looked at this very specifically, and just because it was again. I have a point at the end of this. Do you want me to just read the roster? We don't want to go on for like 15 minutes. People are probably screaming at you
I know, probably.
from their car right now. And
Andy
on the
Green, Andy
Andy
Green,
Green is the other defenseman. Okay, nailed the goalies and defense.
Travis Zajac,
Travis Zajac, ding ding ding.
because they came over together. Oh no, he came over with Palmieri. Is that everyone?
Um, you're missing two players, and I'm kind of two or three players.
Key players?
Yeah, two or three key
Uh,
players.
Bellows? That's not a key player. I
Actual key players.
think that's all I got. Oh, Wahlstrom.
No,
All right, I tap.
I don't know that you said Josh Bailey.
I did. Killer Bees.
Okay, you did say Killer Bees. Okay, so you included Nelson in that. I
Yes.
didn't hear that. The other one, Jordan Eberle.
Yeah, I said that. I said top
Did you?
line with. I said Barzell Eberle,
Oh,
and you
okay.
said not
I
Lee.
got caught up in Lee. Okay, so you got I think all right. So you got it. You got it.
I
So
nailed
you
it.
so you made the comment about wow, it's crazy how much the roster has changed. And I wanted to go
Yeah.
into the conversation about the roster because there's kind of two big things here. Did it actually change? And is it time, has it changed enough? Is it time to move on from those conference final runs? Very exciting. A lot of the players are around. And just to kind of bring this home even more recently, our friend Joe Bono at Isles Fix tweeted, if you swap Holmstrom for Johnson on a 23-man roster, it would mean there are 7 players on last year's opening night roster, not on the one from 2023-24. So for this season. So there's 7 players that are not here for this season that were last year on the opening night roster. And I think that that's a big deal. Really, really thinking about the change. No, they didn't do anything. And they didn't do, quote, anything in the offseason. They got some homework done, did some stuff they needed to do. But especially from this other roster where you have Bailey, Bavillier, Eberle, Komarov, Zajac, Green, Letty. So there are 7 players even from that team that had changed almost immediately, but had changed over the last couple of years. And then it kept changing. And we can argue all day about Holmstrom. That's later in this episode. But I wanted to drive that point home. Does that resonate with you at all about because I thought about this I was on the way from the supermarket today and I was thinking about the episode and the notes
Yeah.
and I was thinking about the roster and I just thought it really has changed and we can't rest on that conference final run anymore or
Yeah.
the back-to-back runs.
You know what? I think it's just the fact that like everybody has just been clamoring for another star forward. I think everyone's still hesitant to say that Horvat is that guy because he was underwhelming after Barzell was injured last season, but
Point production wise,
point
not
production wise.
necessarily his overall play. He was there to score goals and get points, which is
Right.
understandable and a perfectly good comment.
Right. So I think everyone has just been waiting for that star player to really like say, okay, this team has changed. Um and maybe you get a little taste of that this season with a full year of Horvat and Barzell together. You look at the core of the team, obviously we named a bunch of guys who are still around, right? From that team is Sorokin, Varlamov, Barzell, um, Lee, Pajot, uh,
Nelson.
Nelson. Like, there's a lot of names still around. Mayfield. Um, but it's just the I guess the secondary role players around the team that is different. And there's a lot of them that are different, but it's not it's not enough of a change for some people, right? There's been change, but is it enough in terms of quantity or quality? I think that's the argument at this point.
I think that's I think that's fair. There's always been tinkering around the edges. I think is the term everyone's using right now. And even from last season, there's no Zach Parise, there's no Kiefer Bellows, there's no Josh Bailey, there's no Anthony
Yeah.
Beauvillier. There's now no Ross Johnston. Um, Oliver Wahlstrom wasn't in the opening. Uh, I don't know that he was in the opening night roster. He was on the lift, and Sashnikov was
He made
around
it,
for.
yeah. Oh wait, last year? I'm sorry.
Yeah, last year he
Okay.
was on the 23-man roster, but no, I wanted to drive that home. I'm a little disappointed. You almost spoiled it, but I think, but you got the point right away. Like that, we should have just stopped the exercise. That was it, because it has evolved, and you do have a few new guys in there that sure you can trade out. Okay, Bavillier and hopefully Engvall can be a better version of that or whatever, but I think it's a better roster than even that year. There was some different chemistry. You hope that Eberle Barzell translates to Horvat Barzell, that they can make that work. But maybe Barzell is not a center, will elevate that. Um, Lee is pushed down the lineup, something you've said for years. Um, Hopefully he can maintain his scoring while going deeper in the lineup and round out the secondary scoring.
Yeah.
As good as he was, he's also played really well kind of everywhere. So it's interesting. I wanted to start with that. So I'm glad we did it. So Ross Johnston was waived. I think that was the first surprising part of news that happened earlier this week.
Yep.
And
I don't
if
know if
that was
that was the surprise, him being waived. I think that was
well,
one of the options that everyone kind of knew, okay, like this is one thing that can happen to become cap compliant.
it was an option. I think you just expect, well, Holmstrom can just go down and they can figure it out afterwards.
Right.
And you can waive him after everyone's cap compliant, and it's going to be a lot harder to claim him. Although there are a number of teams, Anaheim included, who did claim him, who could have done that probably at any point. The Coyotes could have, Anaheim could have. I don't really know what I can't remember the standings and where Anaheim comes in versus Columbus or Philadelphia or the Coyotes or whatever. They may have been the worst team. I can't remember, but they got to him. But it's interesting that they did it because it's always kind of been there as an option to get that money off the books. Even if you signed it, just admit that it was bad and move on. Or he's a good player and he's a good locker room guy. Just the money isn't working and that's holding us back. So it was, if that wasn't surprising enough that it happened, because it was always an option for years. It was an option.
Right.
Then he gets claimed.
Right.
There's a
That
lot of
was the
mixed.
surprise.
Yeah. So on top of it, that's a surprise. What did you think about that? What was? I
First
mean,
thing I thought
he's
of,
gone. It's wild.
my initial reaction was the Michael Scott uh the office meme where he's like, "Oh wow." Like I did not expect anyone to help the Islanders in this cap crunch era. That's 1.1 million dollars off their books, and in again, when you're cap restricted like we are, that the cap isn't moving up, or it until next summer at least hasn't moved up in 4 years. um that's a lot of money that somebody's taking off your hands for nothing, so the Islanders can turn around and say thank you to Anaheim, because not only did they get him off their books for this year, but he's got 2 more years after this. He's got 3 years left on that deal.
Yeah.
So
And this was one of those deals maybe that Lamro was lumping in that he signed a few years ago, expecting the cap to go up, and it just didn't. It the the timing of it was just, I don't want
right,
to say it was bad timing. I don't think he would call it bad timing, but it turned into bad timing.
right,
Retrospectively, think he would have signed different deals. Um, we're coming out of it, but this absolutely helps. And they haven't recalled Holmstrom yet because they accrue a little more space with him not officially on the roster.
Correct.
So right now they have, I believe, a 22-man roster, and they're going to wait until the last minute to recall him. I'm sure he's still with the team, so just a paper transaction, but so they keep accruing that space, which is helpful for later in the season if and when they make a deal at the trade deadline in March or whatever. Let's talk about Simon Holmstrom a little bit more.
Sorry, breaking news. Owen Power just signed a 7-year contract with the Sabres. Kevin Adams is cooking in Buffalo right now.
Yeah, a lot of 7-year deals, and 2 more with the Jets earlier this week. Hellebuck and
Scheifele, yeah,
and Scheifele. No big goalie trades or Scheifele trades this year, so it's a little disappointing. It would have been wild to see him go somewhere, or either one of those players go somewhere. All right, well, Buffalo's cooking
and
for
another
sure.
breaking news: Connor Bedard scores his first NHL goal.
Yeah, it didn't take long. They played back to
Hockey's
back.
back.
It is. They're. That's. I didn't realize they played back to back already.
Yeah,
That
they
seems
played 2 nights in a row. Devils play Thursday or tonight as you're listening to this, and Friday. Back to
interesting.
backs to start right away.
Yeah. So I do want to talk about Holmstrom.
Yeah.
Lambert said, quote, he's a pretty good fit there on the first line.
Yep.
Is he a shoo-in?
That's a good question. I don't know if he's a shoe-in like for the entirety of the season. But he is, I think, for at least the first game opening night to see how it goes. I think he liked what he saw in the preseason, with him out there, with Horvat and Barzell. He did say that he wanted somebody a little bit more defensively responsible. Maybe that's because he wants to take the load defensively off of Barzell to just let him go out there and skate with the puck freely.
I think that part of that is him being on the wing, too.
Correct. So he's got less responsibility already as a winger rather than a center. And I think that's the goal, is to just give Barzell as much freedom and ice to do what he pleases when he pleases. So from that perspective, I could understand it. As long as Holmstrom can keep up with the foot speed, and he cannot be a liability defensively, which I think that's the reason why he's you know getting that look, is because he's pretty good in his own end and in the neutral zone. I think it'll be okay. You prefer somebody who could finish a little bit better, but at the same time, there were a couple times you and I last season kind of took a step back and said, "Holy crap! Did Simone Holmstrom just shoot that puck?" Because that was a cannon. What a shot! So who knows? Maybe it opens up Simone Holmstrom a little bit more. But I think the idea right now is to just let Barzell move around as much as he can, feed Horvat, who has that, you know, finishing touch, and we'll see how it works, because I still think that there's one missing piece to this puzzle, and that's a legitimate left winger to round out that first line.
Yeah, and swapping Lean Holmstrom wouldn't be the end of the world.
No,
At the end of the day,
I still
there's
don't think
still
though. I still don't think that Lee is the answer. I think
no. I
he's a
don't think he's the
good.
long-term answer.
No, I think he's good, like, for what they have, but as far as long term, no.
I definitely agree. Um, I think this is one of those moments where, depending on how long of a look Holmstrom gets, and maybe either way, this is kind of a make or break situation for him. It's not quite where Wahlstrom's in a weird other mushy place. And I think he gets a little bit of a pass because of the injury, and we'll get to him a little bit later. But for Holmstrom, if he can't succeed on this line, I'm going to put aside my comments that I normally have about a young player on the first line and this and that. Now he's had time to do it, to play with both of these players, and in practice, in preseason games, and all of that. If he's going to do it, this is the line. And I want him to be successful. I want him to score 25 goals. He certainly can by cleaning up the garbage in front of the net with these two players. I th- I think there's just going to be a point where I don't want to hear his name anymore.
Yeah.
Where if it just doesn't work and they move him off that line, just get him off the roster, send him
You
down. He's
you
not ready.
talking Wahlstrom or Holmstrom? I'm sorry.
Holmstrom.
Okay, so
Wahlstrom, I
I
think,
think
is a pass, right? Again, injury and blah blah blah. But
right.
Holmstrom, I
Okay.
don't know. He is still young, but I just if he's not ready for the NHL, then that's it. Just it's okay to have
Well,
prospects. Just
here's the
put them
thing,
in the
because
A.
we've said this in the past too, right? It's like these kids, they get the opportunity, and it's not like they get that third line role. They're thrown right up on the first line into the thick of it. Look, if you're going to play on the top line, you have to expect to be defended against your opposition's top the defensive pair, and that's not always going to. Simone Holmstrom is going to be expected to play against guys like Rasmus Dahlin every night, or Kale McCarrs, or Dougie Hamiltons and Jonas Siegenthal's. Like, these guys are top pairing defensemen who
Yeah,
know how to shut you down, and
I
I
mean,
don't
and I've
know if
said that to you forever about Wahlstrom and how that's not the right move for him.
right.
And I think, like I said just before, let's put that aside for a second because now he's had time, preseason time with this line. At a certain point, you got to do it. I don't know where
I
else he
agree.
fits in the lineup, especially on this team right now, the way that it is. And there's a few other players I definitely want to talk about. I just don't see where he fits in. It's either on the first line or he's in the AHL, which is wild.
Well, yeah, I mean that is wild, but I mean, you said it before. Next best is Anders Lee. So Anders Lee slides up from 3 to 1, and Holmstrom slides down from 1 to 3, and it's as simple as that's the swap. Natsman Hockey is brought to you by DraftKings Sportsbook. The NFL season is going strong, and DraftKings Sportsbook is hooking new customers up with an offer that's even stronger. Bet $5 on any game this week to score $200 instantly in bonus bets. And DraftKings isn't stopping there. All customers can take advantage of a sweetener offer every game this October. I'll be taking the bet that the Chargers beat the Cowboys at a plus 110 money line. So get in on the game day greatness. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code THPN. New customers can score $200 instantly in bonus bets when you bet 5 on the NFL. That's code THPN, only at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPENY or text HOPENY. That's 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort, licensee partner Golden Nugget Lake Charles. 21 plus age varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. See sportsbook.draftkings.com/football terms for eligibility and deposit restrictions, terms, and responsible gambling resources.
What's Gauthier's role? Because if it was my money or for my money or whatever that saying is, if Lee's going up to the first line, Holmstrom's out. Nope. I just throw Gauthier, Peugeot, Fashing, call it a day. I want that speed. I want that tenacity. If Holmstrom isn't bringing it, and it ain't it, he's gone. I don't really care. Have him sit in the press box.
Yeah.
It doesn't bother me. He's a good. Again, it's interesting that Holmstrom and Wahlstrom would be the 13th and 14th forward, but better that it's some young kids that are itching to get in and maybe can prove themselves than Ross Johnston or whatever.
Yeah.
I'd say if you can't hack it on the first line, don't mess around. It's super not worth it.
Yeah,
Just
I'm
put the
looking at
players
the
in there that are hungry.
I'm looking at the lines on Daily Faceoff, and they have Holmstrom on line 1 with Horvat and Barzell, Engvall, Nelson, Palmieri, Lee, Peugeot, Fashing, and the fourth line. Scratched are Wahlstrom and Gauthier. So I guess that he's, meaning Gauthier, the 13th or 14th forward. I would think it's 14, as I think Wahlstrom at least is higher up on the depth chart.
It depends on where the opening is.
Right. So it's interesting, but as far as his role, I mean, you look clearly, they liked what they saw in the kid. I don't think that they signed him to a 1 year, one-way deal. I think they had an idea that he was going to be in the NHL, but I don't think that they thought that he was going to be anything more than an extra guy. And he showed a little bit, in the preseason. He's got some speed. He plays a physical game, and he can hack it offensively. The one knock on him is that he just can't hit the net, as far as his shooting ability. And I don't, who knows, maybe he just needed the right situation. I think
He's
he
got
scored a
Michael
goal.
Grabner syndrome.
Yeah, maybe. And I think he scored a goal or two in the preseason. But we'll just have to see how he fits in the regular season uh spectrum. Now, here's the thing. From what I see from the kid, he's a typical Islander, right? Not afraid to bang bodies. He'll just grind you down. But has a difficult time scoring. Right? That's just really the embodiment of the Islanders right now for a while. So
But for a bottom six guy, that's totally fine. And I don't picture him on the first line, although he did skate in Holmstrom's absence.
yeah,
But I think either Horvat or Barzell said that he's just so fast. I can't remember where I got the quote from, but they were talking about Goche's speed. And
yes,
I
I
think
think
it's
we
one of those
spoke about this
things.
too.
I think we spoke about that. Maybe it was longer ago than I remember. But a third line of Gauthier, Peugeot, Fashing, they're bound to score something. If anything, you're giving the fourth line a rest so that they can continue to do their thing, and then let the top. It's a very clear distinction between the top six and the bottom six, and I think that's okay. You probably have another penalty killer, so that you're not wearing down Clutterbuck. You lost Josh Bailey, so he's another. It's something um, that he can fill in for. And he's a good skater, so that'll help. He doesn't need to score shorthanded goals. It always helps, but it's
Yeah,
not the goal. Um, so it's just interesting. I'm trying to figure out where he fits in, and ultimately who he's actually competing with. Is it if it's Holstrom on the third line? I think that's who he's working against. I really don't see him actually competing with, unless a member of the fourth line is hurt. I don't think that's competition at that point. It's just necessity. Um, and he's not just going to get in over Fashing. So I think you're right that he's just low. He's either 14th or on the third or fourth line. He's not really getting in for somebody in the top six unless they absolutely need him. That's going to be Wahlstrom. But I was impressed by some of the quotes, and like you said, I think I saw him play the same way that you did, and he looked like an Islander. And somebody that we actually need to look like that a little bit more is Oliver Wahlstrom. I'm stuck between, is he still rehabbing or has he not earned a spot in the lineup? There's a part of me that thinks it's both. The quotes that I'm seeing from Lambert lean towards that he's at least saying out loud to the press that it's the rehab. He's got to get up to game speed, so on and so forth. Do you believe that? Is it more of a mix, or are you kind of leaning towards the rehab part?
I think you always say it best. Two things can be true, and I think it is a little bit of both, right? He's been out for you know what is it, 9 months. Uh, no real game action for a long time. Yeah, a handful of preseason games. But again, it's nowhere near the same as an NHL game. So I wonder if he's still getting his feet under him. You know, he's just got to show something. He's got to show that hunger. It just always looks like he's got the puck on the end of his stick and he's just looking to get rid of it. Like you like to say, a grenade, right? Like he's not making any, in my eyes at least, definitive, confident decisions to do anything with the puck. Even his biggest strength in shooting it. So it always just looks like he's fighting to get the puck back. Looks like he's getting pushed off the puck, and I know he has a little bit of physicality to his game, but I didn't see that really much at all in the preseason. And he doesn't look up to speed. Now I'm willing to give it a little bit of time because again of his situation, but he's got to figure it out sooner rather than later because pretty soon he could be written off and
Yeah.
you know on to the next one.
So how does he get in the lineup? Similar question, talking about Gauthier and who's he actually competing with? How does Wahlstrom get into the lineup?
Yeah, he's definitely competing with Fashing, Holmstrom, and Gauthier. And the best way for him to stay in the lineup is score friggin' goals and don't be a defensive liability. The Islanders need a goal scorer. He has the goal scoring ability. Just play well in the other two zones and score goals. That's it.
Is it just how does he get in? Is it are we waiting for an injury or are we waiting for somebody to not play well? They're
That's yeah,
maybe they just switch Holmstrom and Lee just to see how that line jives. I imagine they did in line rushes or practices or whatever. But okay, let's try it in a game. We need a little bit of an extra spark here. Um, Maybe that gets him in somehow. It's like, all right, Holmstrom, just take a seat, watch Wahlstrom go in on that third line with Peugeot and
yeah.
Fashing, something like that. I'm trying to create this situation, but even that's going to be a few weeks. They have to let the roster kind of do their thing and let the whole team get the cobwebs out in real games. So I think I'm just concerned with if he's not up to game speed now, he's not going to look good in 2 weeks from now or longer. Let's go, less than 10 games, but that's a long time. That's 2.5 weeks. When's he going to get that chance to get that off his back truly? Do you think they
Well, I
just give
think
him a chance to just get in the lineup and, okay, man, it's going to be Rusty, do it? Or how does he even get up to game speed at this point?
yeah, I think you said it right before by saying like, he gets in when someone else is not playing well, right? So Holmstrom has a bad night, Wallstrom gets the a chance the next game. And then, if there is an injury, he's the next man up. And in order for him to stay in the lineup, he just needs to give the Islanders or Lane Lambert the no choice but to leave him in. He has to, otherwise he's this is how players have those breakout years, right? Like somebody's dismissed from the lineup for whatever reason, and all of a sudden you can't take him back out when that person is ready to return. And you have to figure out like, okay, good problem to have, but what do I do here? Wallstrom needs to give Lambert that good problem to have, and I don't think that he's done that to this point. So you know, um, I think I think that's the situation right now. Either someone plays, not well and he gets in, or there's an injury and he's the next man up.
I hear that. I think that's the right analysis. It's just really hard for me to think about how it actually works out for him. But
Yeah, and
um,
again, unless Lambert surprises us and just puts him in the opening night lineup and he takes off, surprisingly takes off and doesn't come back out, great. But
yeah,
if he doesn't, then he loses his spot. Somebody else gets a chance, and you know, listen, you hope for that same situation that they take off with somebody else. Maybe Holmstrom takes off, right? Former first round pick who's saying he maybe he won't, right? Maybe was it a bit of a reach? We could have that argument too when they took him in the first round, maybe, but maybe whatever they saw in him comes out. Maybe a DeFore steps up and does well or something like that. Maybe Maggio gets a shot, but someone's got to pop.
yeah. No, it's they've been waiting for it forever, and it's. I think I said this in an earlier preseason episode. It's the Islanders' turn almost. I don't know if that's a thing to just have a young player be a difference maker. They just
Right.
simply have not had that in a that wasn't a shoe in to like a Barzell or something like that, where it was okay. Obviously, this is going to be great. Maybe that's Sorokin for them, where there was a lot of hype and there's KHL numbers and they're just all right. Will it translate? It sure as shit has.
Yeah.
So maybe hopefully that wasn't all the magic that they had, and Lamorello get some magic beans to make that happen, with somebody else. But um, yeah, absolutely, they really need Holmstrom and or Wahlstrom to to pop off. They should frankly both be in the lineup. It's crazy that they pick up guys like Fashing. They get a guy like Goche who has a little bit of edge to his game, and those are the players that make more sense. They go and get an Engvall after trading Bavillier. That should have been a golden opportunity for a young guy to step in that lineup. You don't need to go out and get an Engvall. I'll be that player. Could have been Bavillier too, for all intents and purposes. But I'd
Right.
make that trade again a million times to get Horvat. But all right, let's go off the island a little bit here. Kind of. We're gonna do a James Nichols speculation corner and talk a little bit about some news, kind of what's happening around the league with some players. I think there's always going to be a conversation about adding to the forward group. So we may as well have it, as reluctant as I am. And I said I wouldn't do it, but here we are, because there's some interesting names out there. Let's start with Connor Garland out in Vancouver.
Yeah.
He sent me some tweets and some different things earlier this week. So I made sure to add it here. What are you hearing on the Garland front?
Yeah, so I reached out to some people on this, just saying, hey, would this be a fit for the Islanders? And because we just had this conversation. Is Wahlstrom going to work out? Is Holmstrom going to work out? And look, Connor Garland isn't a an elite first line talent that is can't miss, but he's got some talent, and he's in his mid to late 20s. He kind of fits the age. Um, he could probably he probably would be the best fit if the Islanders were to require him on the first line of anyone on the team. So I reached out to a couple people and said, "Hey, is there anything there?" And in the past, the Islanders have reached out about Connor Garland. There has been interest. However, with the cap situation being what it is, yes, the Islanders got lucky by Johnston getting picked up and freeing up 1.1 million off their cap, but he makes for the next 3 years $4.5 million. Vancouver knows they're going to have to retain some salary here. Not saying that the Islanders have been engaged in those talks. That's just something that they've reached out about in the past. But in regards to Garland, Vancouver knows wherever he goes that they're going to have to retain some salary on Garland. So, I mean, I don't know. Can you make it work, or Lamorello make it work if they say retain 1.5 million and that's just an even 3x3 for the next 3 years? Depends what goes the other way. Maybe you can make it work somehow. But um, the Islanders have been interested in Connor Garland in the past, and I do wonder about anything potentially in the future as a guy who just changed agents and hasn't quote unquote asked for a trade, but it's pretty obvious where this is going. It doesn't seem like he'll be in Vancouver much longer.
Shane Pinto. You surprised me with this just before we started. I added him. I don't know what you're even going to say, but let's go for it.
Shane Pinto is a native of Long Island. So another guy who I reached out about, hasn't signed a contract in Ottawa, obviously. Um, he doesn't necessarily want to leave there, though. He hasn't asked for a trade to this point, but yesterday was the first game of the season, and both sides, although they want to come to a mutual agreement here, you look at a hockey player who hasn't signed yet on the first day of the season, and you know tensions are bound to rise, at least in his head, about, okay, I want to play. Maybe it doesn't matter where at this point, just get me out there on the ice. Maybe he would want to be traded, right? So um Shane Pinto scored 20 goals last year for the Senators. The Islanders have kicked tires on Shane Pinto, according to a couple of people in the know over in Ottawa. Um, However, it's not going to happen. The Islanders can't afford it. They can't afford the ask that Pinto is looking for. And again, the Senators don't even really want to let this player go. Can they help relieve some cap for Ottawa by, I don't know, taking somebody else? Sure, maybe that's a thing. However they could work that out. But even though they've reached out about Shane Pinto, who is a young up and coming center in the league who already has a 20-goal season under his belt. They've reached out about him, but it's highly unlikely from what I'm told.
And Ottawa doesn't have a ton of cap space, so that's part of the problem. They
Right.
only have $62,000 left, so it's not like another player can go the other way.
Right.
It would need to the Islanders need to kind of make a trade for the ever elusive future considerations or a pick or something, and then try to bring that on. But there really aren't a lot of players in the Islanders lineup that it's really easy to take out because they don't make $3 million.
Right. And real quickly before we move off on the Senators, um, Josh Bailey was released from his PTO in Ottawa. However, he's kind of hanging around. If Ottawa can clear space to sign him to a league min contract, that might be a thing.
Yeah, it's sad. It was very
I,
weird seeing him in a Senators jersey.
yeah, well, it definitely was. But I don't think they released him because they didn't like what they saw in him. I think they only released him just because they can't afford it.
Yeah, that's wild. Another good option, um, a younger and a local. I didn't realize he was from Franklin Square. Um,
Yeah.
Zach Parise, 20-goal guy. He has not yet played 100 games, half a point a game, roughly. Um, it would be interesting. Um, there really aren't any, depending on what Pinto is looking for. Engvall makes three forever, but there really just aren't any players that you would want out of your lineup. They don't really have that extra center. Um, Pajot is somebody that at $5 million, there's some kind of sense there that makes sense. That's fine. I think if you're really going to start moving and shaking some things and trading up Pajot off your roster, you're not getting Shane Pinto or Connor Garland.
No.
I think you're going for bigger fish. So I think those are interesting. In my opinion, you don't start screwing with your roster that you said all summer you were doubling down on to then go get one of those two players. And that's not a knock on them. They're just not first
No.
line centers. Now, I say that, and they have Simon Holmstrom on their first line currently. Um, but you didn't really have to do anything for that to happen. You can always make a change. Once you go get a Connor Garland or Champagne, though, that's it. There's nowhere else to go.
Yeah, and the thing about Shane Pinto too is that he's a center, so where does he play if they do acquire him? For argument's sake, if it's for some reason Pajot goes the other way, that's the obvious void you fill there.
that's not
Um,
terrible. And yeah, that's something.
yeah,
That's definitely something. I think you have a guy in Pajot that is not a sexy player for fans, but does really important work for the team, penalty kill, faceoffs, and so on.
yeah,
That even at $5 million, it's not ideal. But for a center and for the strength that they have up the middle, on the whole, it works. If you look at it, Pajot in a vacuum, okay, I understand why you might not like that. But look at the Islanders up the middle. That makes a lot more sense. This is what he offers. This is what you can pretty much trust everybody in the circle. Penalty kill, so on. It makes a lot of sense that way. He's not going to be that sexy player, but come playoff time, he's valuable, and he's proven that by and large.
yeah,
So that's interesting. And you again, you kind of dropped a little bit of a bomb on me right before here, with Lamoriello, and the Islanders. What are you hearing on this front and from one of your colleagues, actually?
yeah. So this is from Dave's latest Dave Pagnotta of the fourth period, his latest article that he speculates and wonders on when Lamorello's last year is. Could be this year. Regardless, whenever that is, something that he's not speculating on but has been told is that whoever is his successor, meaning Lamorello, whoever is Lamorello's successor will be an external hire rather than an internal hire. So, um, a lot of people have been wondering about, is Chris Lamorello going to take over for his father, and is everything going to be more of the same for a long time? I don't think that that is necessarily the case. Now, whoever comes in, I don't know if they're going to have the same philosophies as Lamorello, because I don't know if there is another man out there like that. But um, I can't speak for how much would change after Lamorello. All I know is that, or I'm being told, and Dave is reiterating, is that whoever replaces Lamorello is going to be most likely from the outside, not within.
This isn't me questioning Dave, friend of the show. I just don't understand how this news gets out. That's a big deal. That's not small potatoes. They've kicked the tires on Connor Garland type shit.
Mhm.
That's a little bit bigger than that. That's interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know one way, and I know it's not what you're telling me what you've heard and not the truth. And I'm sure Dave would say the same thing, to quote Elliot Friedman. Um, but it's interesting how that even leaks out in some way.
Yeah. Um, you know, there's always multiple avenues when you find this information, right? Um, a guy who knows a guy, or um, even from the other end of that speculation, right? Like, who's to say that ownership hasn't kicked the tires on, like, okay, look, Lamorello's 81 or going to be 81. um you know let's get a couple candidates under our belt, get the feelers out there, and just reach out and say, hey, you know what's your future look like, and do you have interest in that future being on Long Island? Just because how much longer we're going to be with Lou as the general manager, we're unsure. So, and that's how things could start from there, from that end of it, not from the Islanders end of it.
It's always interesting to me.
Yeah.
Um, and now you're a little bit on that side, or a lot of it, because you've had some pretty good conversations with some folks. So
Yeah,
um,
it's been pretty eventful.
remember us little folk at the bottom when you
You'll
make it
always
one day.
be you'll always be giant in my heart, John.
Stop it. I want to end the show with some questions. Um, some predictions about the upcoming season, but I don't want to go through predictions and every single division, but just some general questions about teams around the league. And we can keep it short. We're almost at an hour here. Um, Boston Bruins, how big of a step back do they take this season?
I saw or heard an unbelievable statistic earlier today, that if they left 18 wins on the table from last season, they would still have reached 100 points. That is incredible.
Yeah,
So, are they going to take a step back without Krejci and Bergeron? Of course. However, they're kind of like
and
the
no
Island.
Hall and no Taylor
eh,
Hall.
No Taylor Hall too, sure. But I look at the Bruins and I'm like, they're similar to the Islanders. Maybe they're a slightly better version. Elite goaltending, really good defense. Just need the firepower up front, and they have a Pasternak, they have Marchand still. So I think they're just a better version of the Islanders. And if we're picking the Islanders to win, or not win, but to make it to the playoffs, I can't see the Bruins not making it. Now, are they going to be the historic 60 something wins that they were last year? No. But could I see them reaching 100 points? Absolutely. So a step back, yes, but not miss the playoffs bad.
Florida Panthers, same question.
Missing the playoffs. Too many injuries for a long time, hard to overcome. I don't necessarily believe in Bobrovsky yet. He showed a lot last year, but not enough for me to sit back and be like, okay, he's consistent again.
He didn't get them there. That was Alex Line.
Right. Spencer Knight, didn't make the opening night roster. He goes down to the AHL. He's like their prized possession in net, up and coming. Um, Now, I could totally put my foot in my mouth because Matthew Kachuk's going to do everything in his power to drag his team across the finish line again. But I just have this feeling that, missing Ekblad and Montour, like those guys are big, big absences. And I think it's going to be at least until December for Ekblad. I don't know the timeline on Montour, but hard to overcome the major injuries that they're looking at.
Last one for the Atlantic Division, Tampa Bay Lightning. Can they get over that hump again, or is this team slipping now?
I watched them yesterday, and the first period they looked really good, and then the last two periods Nashville kicked back. Ultimately they wound up winning the game. They need to be much more disciplined than they were. Took a lot of stupid penalties. Um, they let Nashville back in that game one too many times. And they relied on Johansson to make a couple of saves maybe he doesn't make throughout the rest of the year. So they need to be a lot better in front of their goaltender. They need to, you know, chill out with those penalties. Again, it was just game one, so you expect them to clean it up, but clean up those penalties and I still have a hard time counting them out. Once Vasilevsky returns, I could see them just going on a run to getting back in the playoffs and even like making a deep run in it.
Over to the Metro, and let's a little more lightning round style. The rest of the way we can be here for another 40 minutes. Especially with the New Jersey Devils. Can they repeat? They were 1 point off the division lead, or tied for the division lead last year. Um, can they repeat?
I think they can. They just need to get uh they need to get similar goaltending, maybe a little bit better. And as long as Kevin Ball and Luke Hughes can replace what Severson and Graves left, I think they can. Their forward group is somehow better. So yes.
How big of a step back do the Rangers make this season?
A lot of people have been talking about how they're older and slower, kind of like the Islanders. And I could understand it. There's a lot of talk as about Alexi Lafreniere and how he's not panning out, but I think Capo Caco is a player, so you can never count out a team that has an Igor Shesterkin. I think that they'll be in the mix.
Um, New York Islanders, are they for real? Do we have rose-colored glasses? Has the roster changed enough? Is there just too much unanswered, and it's a fourth place Metro team that's in the mushy middle, maybe a little higher? Um, how do we judge this team? Early predictions here before they even played their first game.
Not too different than the Rangers, maybe a little less talent in the forward group, but a little more talent on the blue line and equal goaltending. Mushy middle, right in the mix.
Um, going to the West, um, can Colorado keep keep it going? They were obviously they won the cup very recently. Um, can they kind of they finished the season strong last year? They don't make it very far, or where do they make it in the playoffs? What round did
They
they?
lost in the first round to the
They
Kraken.
lost in the first round. So how does? Oh, that's right, to the Kraken. Unbelievable. Can they bounce back?
I think they do. They're healthier minus Landeskog. I like the moves they made this summer in Drouin. McKinnon's been really high on him. I like Ross Colton there. Miles Wood. I think they will be at the top of their division and will do well in the playoffs.
Miles Wood was absolutely a good pickup. He was one of those players I didn't like playing against on the Islanders.
Yeah. Oh, and
Where
they got Thomas
see
Tatar.
and Tom Zatar. Yeah, and that's a really good pickup there. Um, Golden Knights.
Got to be careful of
Can
that
they
hangover.
Gotta be careful of the hangover. Can they repeat, or are they just in the conversation just because? I don't think they've had a very big roster turnover. Um, they had a very good season last year. Obviously, they won the cup, but the regular season was also quite good. One of the rare top of the league teams that kind of go all the way and win there. Obviously, not a President's Trophy winner, but um, is this the year? Is there another team that can knock them off in their own division?
Yeah.
Edmonton, with Connor McDavid, you never know. Um, and you have up and coming teams like Seattle, who knows if they can repeat. What say you about the Pacific Division?
Yeah. Uh Repeating for the Golden Knights, repeating is really hard. Um, but I think that they will be right back in the mix. However, I have Edmonton winning their division.
Interesting, interesting. And there's Calgary was just they were 7 points back, and you kind of figure it's a make or break for a lot of those players at this point. They had a lot of changes a couple years ago. Huberto's got to step up, and a bunch of other players they brought in. New coach now, so kind of no excuses. The bottom of both divisions in the West are um,
Yeah.
not looking great. I'm not sure that there's a whole lot there. I mean, you have Nashville hanging around, new general manager Ryan O'Reilly. Um, so Winnipeg has got to get their shit together in that division. Los Angeles has made a couple moves this summer. They have PLD, Pierre Luc Dubois, which I think is really good, and they're getting younger. They have some goaltending that they can work with, and they still have Drew Doughty and Kopitar. So the West is interesting. The middle of the both divisions in the West seem a lot like the Metro to me. The Atlantic seems a little more together. Maybe you have Buffalo trying to sneak in. They were just 1 point back last year of Florida, which is crazy to think about. But those Western Conference division, like other than maybe the fifth place team, everyone else is. I don't think they've made any significant changes. St. Louis is a big surprise that they took a step back. I don't know if they've made enough changes going into the season to step up again. Didn't really hear a whole lot in the offseason.
They got Kevin Hayes.
Yeah, I don't know. That's moving and shaking here. They were sub 500 team last year. Is that 15 points better all of a sudden? I'm not sure.
Sleeper Jacob Vrana scoring 40 goals.
It's possible. Possible. Any last thoughts here?
No, that's really it for me. It's an exciting season for me because I'm looking at all of the new talent in the league, and like teams like Ottawa are intriguing to me. Buffalo, like if I'm not watching New Jersey, I'm probably putting on the Buffalo game. Obviously, when Bedard's playing, I'm going to be watching. Detroit's going to be fun to watch this year. Like even Montreal, I don't expect them to do big things, but they have a lot of young talent. Like there's so much young talent in the league now, and it's just fun and exciting to see. So I'm excited to watch all this new blood in the league.
Yeah, the Atlantic's a little more exciting on that front, where you kind of have some teams that you don't really know with Ottawa, Buffalo as well. They can definitely steal some wins from some teams, and that helps just in the East in general. If the points are a little more spread out, it helps the Islanders anyway, as far as why it matters to us,
Yeah.
or at least to us when you're on this show and not covering the Devils anyway. When you're cheating on the Islanders. All right. We can wrap it up here. Please rate, review, subscribe wherever you listen to or watch the show. You can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Threads, and YouTube at Nesman Hockey. You can find James' work at New Jersey Hockey Now and The Fourth Period. And really, for the first time this season, right before Game 1 this Saturday against the Sabres, bring us home, buddy.
Until next time, let's go Islanders.